they force the police to write the occurrence book?
Thank you for your question, Your Honor. No, they cannot. However,
So it is an as my colleague had asked, so it is an internal matter and not a matter of the general public. The general public have no control.
Thank you for your question, Your Honor. However, pursuant to Article 234 of the Constitution, we have trained our police officer to the highest standard of professionalism. Your Honor, that is why I have relied on the 5th schedule. One of the aspects of professionalism is that they have to enter these records, which is why it is our submission that they indeed would have entered
and so
the records.
will you still subscribe the doctrine or the notion of professionalism to the police officer who shot an unarmed woman?
Thank you for the question, Your Honor.
They are still trained by you, isn't it?
Indeed.
Yes.
Thank you for the question.
So that means if they can shoot an unarmed woman, they can also miss to write the occurrence.
Thank you for the question, Your Honor. However, in regards to that, that would be a presumption because the fact sheet is expressly clear that it singled out the particular officer. And in this regard, the fact sheet is equally expressly clear when it states that there are no records of the same. Therefore, we cannot proceed to infer that which we have not been provided.
Can I ask a question?
Okay.
So other than the evidence that there was no record in the occurrence book, did you, according to the fact sheet, paragraph 18, Mr. Mumbea had received some death threats. Was there an investigation to those death threats? Was there an investigation on the movements of the police officers at that police station? Was there an investigation of their police call data records, the phone records? What an investigation was done? Did the state do into the disappearance of Mr. Mumbea?
Thank you for your question.
And to add on that, kindly respond also to the two witnesses who claim that they were with Mumbea in the same cell, in the same police station.
In regards to the first question put forth before me, it is a submission as the state that we adduce the fact that Mumbea did not even come to report those particular death threats. Your Honor, pursuant to paragraph 18 of the fact sheet, the officer there expressly tells Siki, Mumbea's wife, that no allegations of death threats had been reported. Now, Your Honor, as I previously stated, General Standing Orders 303 on the occurrence book expressly provide that it's the accurate and faithful record of matters requiring attention and investigation by the service. Therefore, if we adduce the fact that no death threats were reported, we cannot proceed to investigate, yet no report of the same was made in our occurrence book. Your Honor, in regards to your questions as to the two witnesses who stated they have seen Mumbea, Your Honor, it is worth noting that these two witnesses did not record any statement with the police regarding the whereabouts of Mumbea or whether they had seen him or not. They just came forward and stated that they had seen him. How reliable then is their statement?
So relating to my colleague's question, was there an investigation that was carried out even with the death threats of Mumbea so that even the witness statements would form part and parcel of a chain of investigations?
Thank you for your question, Your Honor. No, there were no investigations for the simple reason that the same reports were not made in the police station. And further to that, pursuant to paragraph 18 of the fact sheet, our officer requests Siki to record Mumbea as a missing person in order for the same to be investigated, but she runs out in distress. It simply follows that we could not proceed to investigate something which had not been brought forth to our attention.
What about the two witnesses in paragraph 20? Paragraph 20, two witnesses have come forward and given this information. Was there an investigation into their claims?
Thank you for the question, Your Honor. It is, however, our submission that these witnesses simply stated that seen Mumbea. They did not come to the police station to record statements. Thank you for your question.
They said they were in custody together.
Thank you for the question, Your Honor. In this regard, these two witnesses stated that they had seen Mumbea. They simply stated. They did not record a statement to the police as regards the fact that they were in custody with Mumbea.
Counsel, let me just ask you this because you understand the standard of proof is on a balance of power. provided evidence. There are two witnesses who offer direct evidence that they saw him in the police station. That is direct evidence. So the burden has shifted to you. What is your rebuttal to the direct evidence of the two witnesses?
Thank you for your question, Your Honor. However, pursuant to the definition put forth by Adrian Kane in his book Law of Evidence, which is highly persuasive in this regard, he defined direct evidence as a statement given by a witness under oath, affirmation that they perceived a particular fact in issue. Your Honor, in this regard, it's a submission that these statements were not made under oath or affirmation, neither were official statements recorded with the police. It simply follows that we need to work with the records which show that indeed Mumbaya was not in our custody.
But counsel, evidence has been brought forth giving circumstances under which it was not possible or would explain the failure of police to record.
Thank you for your question, Your Honor. However, to work with the circumstances brought forth would be to misguide this court when the facts are so clear that indeed Mumbaya was not in our custody. Your Honor, we adduce evidence pursuant to our records, which should have been the true and accurate records of what actually transpired. And therefore, if our own records are silent on the same, we cannot proceed to say that indeed Mumbaya was in our custody.
Now let me just ask you the final one. Is it probable that Mumbaya was there and the police did not record? Is it probable from the evidence presented?
Thank you for the same, Your Honor. It is our submission as the respondents that no, it was not probable, due to the fact that the wife was even given a tour of the holding sites. It therefore simply follows that an order of habeas corpus cannot issue pursuant to the case of Mangolo Kiguzo versus Republic, where the court expressly stated that an order of habeas corpus cannot issue where the respondents do not have custody of the subject, for the simple reason that the respondent cannot be ordered to produce that which is not in their custody. It is our submission as the respondents, Mumbaya was not in our custody. Therefore, an order of habeas corpus shall not suffice. I pray for 1 minute to wrap up on the second limb of the second ground on matters.
You won't be able to finish the second round in 1 minute. It's impractical.
Thank you for the same, Your Honor. However, I was to canvass the second limb of the second argument on the failure of the state to conclude investigations.
How many minutes do you have there? 2 minutes. Please make conclusion statement.
Thank you for the same. Your Honor, it is our submission that the state did not violate the Constitution and international human rights law by failing to conclude investigations into the death of Tanjari and her brother, for the simple reason that investigations are still ongoing. Pursuant to paragraph 16 of the fact sheet, we have already traced the bullet that was found lodged into Tanjari's body. We have proceeded to suspend the officer, arrest him, and even open murder charges. The fact that no conviction has been procured yet does not mean that eventually we will not procure a conviction. What you're stating is that we are still in the process of carrying out our mandate. We therefore pray that this court establishes that indeed there was no enforced disappearance of Mumbaya and Willan, an order of habeas corpus shall not suffice, and that we did not violate the Constitution in failing to conclude investigations. I'd like to sit down to my co-counsel to proceed.
Thank you, Counsel. Good afternoon, Your Honor. As previously introduced, I'm Kedenji Doreen Kizi, and I'll be responding to the issues raised by the petitioners. On the first issue, on whether there was a violation of the Constitution and international human rights law while quelling protesters, and on part of the second issue, on excessive use of force leading to the death of Tanjari and her brother, Your Honors. On my first issue, on whether it was a violation of the Constitution to quell protesters, Your Honors, we recognize the right to demonstrate under Article 37 of the Constitution, but it is worth noting that the same Article 37 provides that these protests, or rather demonstrations, should be peaceable and unarmed. And I repeat, peaceable and unarmed, Your Honor. And this is pursuant to the case of Hussein Khalid versus Attorney General, a 2017 case decided in the Court of Appeal of Nadia, which is hence binding in this honorable court, where the judge stated that even without looking at Article 24 of the Constitution on limitations of rights. Article 37 gives a specific internal qualifier that demonstrations should not be unlawful, and they should be peaceable and unarmed, rather, Your Honors. It is my submission that we actually recognize that the Article 37 is not absolute. This is pursuant to Article 25, which excludes it from the rights that are actually absolute, Your Honor. And Article 24, sub-Article 3 actually provides that a state, while limiting rights, should demonstrate to this honorable court that indeed they met the factors or the criteria that is laid down under Article 24, sub-Article 1 of the Constitution, Your Honor. The petitioners actually stated that we did not quell these protesters peacefully, Your Honor, and according to the law, Your Honor. But I shall proceed and demonstrate to this honorable court that indeed we met the criteria under Article 24, sub-Article 1 of the Constitution, Your Honor. This particular article provides that we shall recognize, or rather consider, the nature of these rights that we are limiting, Your Honor. The nature of these rights, as earlier said, is not absolute. Therefore, it means it is subject to limitations. Your Honor, as Thomas Hobbes, a renowned English philosopher and very commonly known for his book Leviathan of 1651, actually stated that man in his nature tends to take unlimited freedoms, owing no due regard to the rights of others. He owes to take anything that he wants, and if this is allowed, Your Honor, human life will be brutish, short, and poor. With the same regard, Your Honor, the second factor actually provides that we consider the importance of the purpose of limiting it.
That was a beautiful statement. And can you give us evidence of how this particular protest do not fit specifically within 24(1)A on the nature of the rights of the fundamental people?
Thank you so much, Your Honor, for your question. As I said earlier, the nature of the right to demonstrate is that it's not absolute.
So
Meaning,
because it's not absolute, we should just take your word for it and never allow any demonstrations.
thank you, Your Honor, for that question. The answer is no. We should not take it for granted, and that is why, in limiting it, the law requires that we actually consider these factors and limit it according to the law. And when you look at paragraph 5 of the compromise, Your Honor, these protests were not lawful.
Counsel, let me take you to the content of that right.
Yes.
If you read Article 20, it says when a court is looking at the right, we must give an interpretation that gives effect to the content of that right. So you cannot have a limitation that does away with the right. You cannot say this article is not absolute, but we can limit it, and you limit it to an extent that the content of the right is done away with. For example, if you come with a limitation that does away with protests and picketing, that is not a limitation. You have actually done away with that right. Are you getting it? So first, define for us the content of Article 37, then tell us the limitations. And there should not be limitations that do away with the content of that right.
Thank you so much, Your Honor. In answering your question, actually, as I stated earlier, Article 37 of the Constitution provides for the right to demonstrate. But what does it say? It says that the demonstrations should be peaceable and unarmed. Meaning that if this is not so, or rather, as I said earlier in the case of Hussein Khalid, that I stated earlier, Your Honor, versus the Attorney General 2017, the presiding judge actually said that even without looking at Article 24 of the Constitution on limitation of this particular right, Article 37 gives a specific internal qualifier that these demonstrations should be peaceable and unarmed. Meaning, if they're not peaceable and unarmed, then automatically that becomes an infringement of that particular article. pursuant again, Your Honor.
Ask the same question that my brothers asked. So what is the content of that right? Or who determines whether the protest is peaceable? Who determines whether the protest is peaceable and whether the people are armed?
Thank you so much for that particular question, Your Honor. Section 24 of the National Police Service Act 11A of 2011 actually gives us the duties of the police officer. One of the duties is to maintain peace and order. And Your Honor, this is actually straightforward, that it is the police work to actually monitor and ensure security during protests, Your Honor. And they oversee how these protests are going on, Your Honor. Your Honor, if you may allow me to proceed to the
No, because you're not answering the question.
Where are you rushing to?
Let me ask you this. Every right imposes an obligation on the state to guarantee that right. There is a right to protest, but peaceable. If it is not peaceable, then it is the obligation of the state to make sure that it is peaceable. It is not the duty of the state to do away with the picketing, isn't it? So you tell us, how did you undertake your duty of making sure that the picketing is peaceful? And your answer cannot be by doing away with the picketing. Are you getting it?
Yes, thank you so much, and thank you for making me understand the question better, and apologies for misguiding you in any way. Actually, Your Honor, when you look at the last factor, if I may start from there, of the limitation, it states that in limiting a right, we have to use less restrictive means, Your Honor. I will demonstrate to this honorable court how we actually proceeded to actually allowing the demonstrations, monitoring security, and further, after the protest turned violent, and actually the protesters started hurling stones and doing other criminal activities, Your Honor. That is.
So perhaps we should go down one by one. If they throw tear gas at you and you throw it back, you consider that not peaceable?
Your Honor.
If they are the ones who started the action by throwing tear gas at them, and they throw it back at the police, you call that not peaceable on their part?
Your Honor, let me guide you to.
Yes or no answer?
No, Your Honor.
No. Would carrying placards and talking about we want our rights enforced, would that be peaceable or not peaceable?
That would be peaceable.
If the police throw something at you and you throw it back at them, whatever it is, assuming that they pick stones instead of the tear gas that is thrown at them, would you say that they were not being peaceable?
Your Honor, I would say that they were not being peaceable, Your Honor, since they are in possession of offensive weapons, Your Honor, and they're using these weapons to actually charge on the police officers, Your
Also,
Honor.
can you pinpoint a specific paragraph in the compromise where the stones, sticks, and machetes were used against the police? Please pinpoint to us. Is there a specific paragraph showing that?
Thank you so much, Your Honor. Paragraph 9 of the compromise actually takes us to the actions of these protesters, Your Honor. From hurling stones to passing motorists, which is an infringement of the right to human dignity, Your Honor.
So, not to the motorists, have you heard me? Did they at any one moment use stones or the sticks or the machetes against the police?
And Counsel, just to add to that, if you look at paragraph 9, there's a sentence that says that the police engaged in running battles with the protesters and pursued them and indiscriminately beat up anyone that they came across with batons and kicks.
Thank you so much, Your Honor. In answering your question, these were massive protests, as seen under paragraph 4 of the compromise, Your Honor. Therefore, it would not be really accurate to distinguish who is protesting and who is not, Your Honor.
So, Counsel, we have to make a judgment based on the fact of the size of the protesters. So, the mere fact that it was a large number that the police could not handle, therefore, it fits within the limitation.
Thank you so much for that question, Your Honor. It is very me, Your Honor, that actually these demonstrators were actually in groups and there were massive protests, and also two protests coincided. It was actually not possible to distinguish who were the protesters and who were not.
Council, can you direct us to any specific provision under Article 24 that says that the size of the number of protesters fits within the limitation?
And while you're adding on that, your colleague alluded that your police officers are professionally trained. These professionally trained people are unable to distinguish between armed and unarmed protesters. Start with her question.
Thank you so much, Your Honors, for your questions. I'll start with the first question imposed on me. There is no specific provision under the Constitution that provides that where there are massive protests, we should actually limit this particular right, Your Honor. However, if you could allow me to demonstrate that we met these particular factors one by one, Your Honor, then I believe I would persuade this honorable court that we actually met this criteria while actually limiting this right, Your Honors. Your Honors, without much further ado, since I actually touched on a matter on using less restrictive means, let me go to my second issue on excessive use of force leading to the death of Tangerine and her brother. Your Honor, it is a submission before this honorable court that we are aware of Article 61, or rather, my apologies, Section 61 of the National Police Service Act 11A of 2011 that requires us to use less restrictive means while dealing with civilians. Equally, the 6th schedule requires for the same. However, where less restrictive means are rendered ineffective, Your Honor, then we are justified to use force on a limited basis. And the test for this, Your Honor, is proportionality, necessity, and legality. And I will demonstrate to this honorable court that we actually met these principles, or rather test, Your Honor. With regards to the death of Tangerine, Your Honor, or rather, the death of Tangerine's brother, Your Honor, which is provided for under paragraph 6 of the compromise, Your Honor, we see that actually there were armed protesters shooting at the police, and the police actually shot back. Your Honor, in the case of Ahmed Mohammed Omar versus Attorney General, a 2010 case.
Counsel, is it an allegation or a statement by the police spokesperson that there were armed protesters, or is it a fact that there were armed protesters?
Last sentence of the page that provides for paragraph 6, Your Honor, we are told that actually there were armed protesters shooting, or rather firing at the police, and they were actually exchanging bullets with the police. Your Honor, it is my submission.
Counsel, is it a fact or a facting issue?
Your Honor,
is it a fact or a facting issue?
It is a facting issue, Your Honor.
So it is something that you are alleging that there were armed protesters.
But Your Honor,
you're getting the point?
Yes, Your Honor.
Okay. But we can agree that there were protesters who had stones, machetes, and sticks. We're together?
Yes.
But we are not in agreement as to whether they had firearms.
Your Honor, again, let me direct you to the last line of the page that provides.
Counsel, I have read that page, and that's why I'm saying the police spokesperson is the one who asserted that even some of the protesters had guns. We're together. So it is an allegation. One side is saying the other one is saying the opposite. Both sides have not agreed, so it's a facting issue.
Yes, Your Honor.
So what evidence do you have to support this, that there were actually protesters with guns?
Thank you so much for that particular question, Your Honor. Actually, the police spokesperson stated that there were armed protesters shooting. And if you may allow me, Your Honor.
Counsel, let's answer this one question. Do you have evidence to demonstrate or to show that we had armed protesters? Yes or no? Other than the statement by the police spokesperson, do you have evidence?
Your Honor, no. The compromise is silent on the
Okay.
same, Your Honor.
Thank you very much. Please make your conclusion.
Thank you so much for the same, Your Honor. I would like, Your Honor, for you to add me just a minute to touch on Tanjari's death, Your Honor.
I will add you 60 seconds.
Thank you so much for the same. Thank you for the same, Your Honor. With regards to the death of Tanjari, Your Honor, we actually concluded investigations and found that one officer Kilio, Your Honor, actually committed the murder of Tanjari pursuant to paragraph 16 of the compromise. Apologies, Your Honors. And this means that we as the state, pursuant to section 88 of the National Police Service Act, which states that where a police officer conducts a criminal act, they shall be criminally liable, and actually proceedings will be brought to against them before court, Your Honor. We actually took steps, Your Honor, to investigate on the matter. We took steps, Your Honor, to suspend this particular officer and also, Your Honor, arrest him, Your Honor, and open charges for him from the murder of Tanjari, Your Honor. Time is not on my side. Please allow me to make the prayers before this
Counsel,
one.
before you go to prayers, I do have one question, because you're alluding to the fact that this was one isolated incident of excessive force, and therefore the state should not hold any responsibility, but rather the individual. But Counsel, if you go back to this famous paragraph 6 that you keep quoting, your police spokesman actually is not sure which bullet hit the child, and continues to say that in case there was a misuse of a firearm, the responsible person, if he's a policeman, will incur individual responsibility. So this is a second incident. When you move to paragraph 13, again you have the number of cases of about 45 casualties in the hospital, including 3 that had light bullet wounds. So this is in fact a trend within this professionally trained police force.
Thank you so much for your question, Your Honor. With regards to paragraph 13, which actually gives us the number of casualties, Your Honor, you cannot entirely blame it on the police officers, bearing in mind that they were armed protesters, Your Honor. You cannot entirely blame the police officers.
Agreed about protesters being armed, that it is a contested issue. So don't present it as fact, and you have failed to produce evidence.
Thank you for that direction, Your Honor.
Please make your concluding statement responding to that discussion.
Thank you so much, Your Honor. Your Honor, in responding to your question, Your Honor, that is why, as you can see clearly under paragraph 16, whenever there is a case of murder that is clear, Your Honor, we conclude investigation, or rather, we investigate, Your Honor, and we actually proceed to actually make these people criminally liable by arresting them and proceeding to court to Your Honor, to actually prosecute them. Thank you for reminding me the correct word, Your Honor. Sorry, I had lost the correct term to address this court with, Your Honor. And because of time, please allow me to make my prayers. If I am...
Thank you very much. Your prayers are well read in the submissions.
Thank you for that, Your Honor.
The kind permission, my brother. So what is the balance between the respect for human rights and maintaining national security in Nadia?
Thank you so much for that particular question, Your Honor.
Counsel, you have thanked us a lot, but let's respond. Please respond.
My apologies if you feel offended.
No, it's okay, Counsel. We are happy and delighted.
Thank you so much. So, Your Honor, in answering your question, the balance between national security and upholding human rights lies under Article 24 of the Constitution of Nigeria, Your Honor. I believe I have clearly answered you, and I seek to rest my case, Your Honor, to invite them for rebuttals, Your Honor. Thank you so much.
Please exercise 1 minute. Thank you very much.
Honorable judges, Your Honor, and you shall know them by their actions. Your Honor, the state of Nadia is on the UN report watch list on extrajudicial killings and enforced disappearances. Therefore, Your Honor, it is unreasonable to expect them to record Mumbea in an occurrence book at the police station. Number 2, Your Honor, on the obligation of the state respecting human rights, the state have submitted that they abscond themselves from the enforced disappearance of Mumbea. But we ask before this question, what is the obligation of the state in respect to protecting human rights? They are required to investigate matters, to prosecute matters, and ensure that perpetrators of human rights violations are brought to justice. Beg this court to take into account the case of Sarah versus Nigeria. Therefore, the allegation by the respondent that they abscond themselves from the obligation to investigate is unfounded and unwarranted. I beg to take my seat.
No, counsel, just answer. From your submission, I gather that your claim against the state is a claim of not performing their duty as required by law. Is that right?
Yes.
If that is the case, that to me sounds like negligence, isn't it? Which is a tort.
Your Excellency, to answer your question,
Yes.
state's obligation respecting human rights do not lie in a tortious way, Your Honor. Rather,
Just a minute. You agree with me that your claim basically is the way they performed their duty, that they were negligent in the way they did it. That is what you agree.
it is not that they performed their duty in negligence. Rather, they did not perform their duty in accordance with the law and taking into account various
Okay. You're saying they abdicated their duty.
Yes,
Is that not negligence?
my lord, the state is always obligated under the law. Like let's say Article 245 to conduct investigations. When they fail to conduct investigations, they are in violation of the law.
And so you don't want to call this a negligent action.
No, Your Honor. I don't want to call
Okay,
it.
let me take your answer. How do you enforce non-compliance with the treaty obligations? Is it by way of a constitutional application? Does your remedy lie in administrative action
Your
to
Honor,
compel the state to perform its duties?
I'll answer your question in 2 stages. The first stage, this court has the jurisdiction to interpret international treaties and documents which have been ratified by the state of Nadia because they form part of national laws as regards Article 2.5 and 2.6 of the Constitution of Nadia. Therefore, if we require an interpretation of an international obligation of the state or an international document, we can always approach the High Court under Article 165.
Article 165, the High Court has got many jurisdictions, isn't it?
Yes.
If international law forms part of our law, it means international law, just like any other statute, the court has jurisdiction to interpret it, isn't it?
Yes, Your Honor.
But it does not elevate international law to be part of our constitution. Are you getting it?
Yes, Your Honor.
So, breach of international law, treaty provisions, how do you enforce it?
Your Honor, they enforced in the following ways. 1, you can approach an international tribunal or a tribunal which is established by an international document to deal with the specific redresses available in case there's non-compliance of treaty obligations. And number 2, the other states can petition the United Nations General Assembly to ensure that the state, like the states of Nadia, to comply with its international obligations.
Thank you very much.
Thank you, Your Honors. Thank you for your time.
At this point, we'd like to thank Council counsels for the petition applicant and counsels for the respondent for your able submissions. Thank you very much. We'll retire and we'll deliver our judgment in the next 20 or so minutes. Thank you very much. The matter is adjourned.
Most of you are my colleagues. I'm an alumni of this great KUSOL, Kenyatta University School of Law, and I'm a proud alumni. And on behalf of Transparency International Kenya, I want to thank you for the partnership that we've been having. And I've liked it and participated as a judge in the last moot court. And I've seen the way the competition has grown. I think we are all very grateful for the much effort that the students have put into their work today. And it's a big up to you guys, and continue the spirit. I think these can only be the platforms that you're able to use to advance your professional, academic, and even personal goals. Yeah, this is where you profile yourself as a learned colleague or a learning colleague. Yeah, in this profession, and we hope that you continue with this very good spirit and reach out to us within these various sectors, the practice, civil society, our government institutions, for any support that you require. And you see, when you reach out, the support comes through. So I'm very grateful, and I'm very proud to be part of this forum today. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Douglas. Next, we shall have Anne from Indu. Round of applause.
Okay, all protocols observed. Good evening, everyone. As Timothy has already hinted, my name is Anne Mulama. I'm the legal officer at Independent Medical Legal Unit. And on behalf of Indu, we feel honored, and we continue to thank the organizing committee of the AKMCC for inviting us to attend, or rather to support this great initiative. I've been able to be one of the judges in 2 sessions, and I've been able to see students argue meticulously issues and marry the issues to facts and law. They've even gone further to outline various international as well as local jurisprudence to be able to build on our jurisprudence in regards to human rights. And we cannot take that for granted. As I've already had a discussion with several of you, and we are in agreement that if we move to nurture the young minds and be able to tell them that at this very point when you're young, you're able to marry the issues that are happening in the contemporary world, as well as when you're continuing with your education. It's a great opportunity, and we do not take that for granted. At IMLU, we are under our strategic objective 3, we wish to partner more with academic institutions, and such like opportunities, we do not take them for granted. These are the opportunities that we can give students to be able to address the contemporary issues and as well as human rights law. We wish to partner more, even in the next competition. Timothy, reach out to us and we'll be able to support. And as you can see, the human rights world, supporters will always be there to support you. We can always coin an issue around the human rights law, basically on torture, violence, and discrimination, and be able to discuss even more. Find out what the young minds thinking, and that will be able to build the jurisprudence, not as a young generation, but as a country at large. Thank you so much.
Thank you very much, Anne. Next, we shall have Ms. Vivian from Kenyan Law.
Good evening, ladies and gentlemen. My name is Vivian Etienne from the National Council for Law Reporting Kenya Law. On behalf of our CEO editor, Mr. Domieterer, we are honored to be here for this competition. Kenya Law has partnered with AKMCC from the beginning, and our partnership shall continue. We have been judges in the research paper category and oral presentation, and we must say that your interrogation of national security and human rights jurisprudence is commendable. You can clap for yourself. And we'll continue partnering with you in nurturing young lawyers' understanding of jurisprudence, being our core mandate as the official publishers of the law reports and the official publishers of the laws of Kenya. We'll continue partnering with you, and as I stated earlier, always reach out to us. You know where to find us, Timothy, and we will come with the little that we have, but we will bring our expertise and we will nurture you and support you to the very end of your career. Thank you.
Next, we shall have Mr. Martin from the Human Rights Commission.
Good evening, ladies and gentlemen. On behalf of the Kenyan Human Rights Commission, I would like to thank the organizers of the 6th edition of this moot court for inviting us and giving us an opportunity to interact with students from different universities. I would also like to thank the different partners and the organizers just for making time for both contributing financially and also to offering technical support towards this important cause. As the Kenyan Human Rights Commission, we remain committed to this cause, and I hope this is the beginning of many more partnerships. Timothy, feel free to reach out to us. And as you always, in the event that you organize future moot courts, just try to reach out to partners earlier. Let's say, for instance, we know next year there's a moot court, right? So by, let's say, October or November, you should have just sent us, the themes. You don't have to send us the budget per se, but the themes, because when you look at the Kenyan Human Rights Commission, we work on a series of human rights violations. So it's important to give us that theme earlier, such as an institution, we can see where to anchor that in our program. And before you here, I can commit that my colleagues in office are very interested in working with Kenyatta University in this important initiative. Without further ado, I just say thank you.
Thank you very much, man. Next we shall have Ms. Man from IDM.
Thank you, Timothy. Good evening. I know those who've spoken before me have talked about the young legal minds that are here. When you're referred to as young legal minds, let me say this. What you are is fresh minds. Because unlike us who have lived and litigated through the things that you are mooting on, you guys come with a whole new perspective. You're not tainted by what we think the limitations are, or you're not angered by what we consider to be the frustrations of trying to prosecute these issues are. So that means that, as my colleague said when we started off, that you're grappling with a question that the world has asked itself, where national security and human rights connect. You guys are probably the ones who manage to answer it. So when we call you young legal minds, don't take it to heart to suggest that you are not competent. You actually are competent. We're passing on the baton of a question we have tried to litigate and live through, and now we realize it needs to be taken on by other people. So I commend you. I've had the joy of being part of the judging for some of your moots. I think what you all brought was good old grit, hard work, and passion. Some of you, there was a young man on this corner who I had wanted to commend, whose voice was nothing like what I expected, when he walked into the court. It was very commanding and powerful. I can't see him now. But you brought such amazing passion. The delivery, it was so evident that you had prepared yourselves and that you had worked well as teams, even as you are moving from the different topics that you handle. So I commend you for that. I would say to you that even as you consider what you will do in practice, don't let these thoughts and discussions end here. You still have the opportunity to research. Nothing as important as your knowledge. So as you consider topics for your dissertation, I hope this has stirred in you just an interest and a curiosity to be the one who starts delivering answers to such modern day problems. To the planning committee, the president, he likes to be called the president and his team, I commend you for your work. You have done a fantastic job. And because of the fantastic job you have done, thank you.
Good evening, everyone. I wasn't aware I was supposed to talk, but I was very, very impressed by the presentations by the various students, because being a former mooter myself, I am able to see the amount, or I'm able to appreciate the amount of effort it takes to carry out such research and be able to actually present it in a very coherent way. And this year, me and Mr. Mugambi, who was one of your judges as well, will be introducing an award to this competition. It's the EZ Ongoya Award. How many of you know Mr. Ongoya? Yes. How many of you, gentlemen at the back, you raise your hand. What do you admire about Mr. Ongoya?
Being my teacher, he has taught me many things about advocacy, and most admirable is child advocacy. The skills, how he talks in class, how he encourages us to be young, upcoming, and big lawyers in future. I really appreciate what he does for us.
Yes. So that in a way speaks for itself. The award is going to be going to one of fresh minds amongst us who we have seen that has a potential to become the legal scientist that Mr. Ongoya is. I look forward to seeing you in the next competition. I believe you can reach out to us or me. Thank you.
sponsors all have spoken, and we've come to now the final bench who are seated. And just before we get the remarks, I'll ask Mr. Vida Emmanuel, who was my former boss. I worked under him in the office of the Attorney General, and I must say, probably he's the most amazing boss. I can give you a story, just a short story about him. I was in the judicial review division where he heads, and he came, I was just an intern. And he found me there and he asked me, are you a new intern? And I told him yes, and he told me, come and buy lunch. So he bought me the first lunch ever at the office of the Attorney General, and for that I'm forever grateful. And so, Mr. Vida Emmanuel, thank you.
Thank you. Thank you, all of you. I don't think I want to speak on behalf of the Attorney General. I think he was here yesterday and I spoke on behalf of the office. I can only speak for myself. I think I participated briefly in terms of the last moot. And my feedback is that there is potential, like the Swahili says, kunjema onekana, asubuhi, sindio? And 1,000 miles journey, like the Chinese say, begins with a single step. For those of you who are brave enough to take up the challenge, I believe you've learned a lot. I have been defending the government for very many years, and I identified with the respondents. Most of your sponsors have actually been swingers. And those are the issues that we've been grappling with. I'm impressed by the way some of you have dealt with it. But like I always say, it would be very unfortunate 10, 20 years from now for people to be still talking about your potential. There must come a time when that potential is fulfilled. And you must start now. I think that is my take-home message to you. Don't be satisfied with people telling you you have potential, you're saying this, you're saying this. You know, just start now. And my experience, especially from the aegis offices, people, the way they turn up, you know, the way they begin is the way they will end. The ethics, the values that you have now are probably the same you have years down the line. People rarely change at this stage. So for those of you who have begun this journey, you know, the passion, the diligence, the zeal to improve yourself, just keep at it. You will definitely succeed. I remember what my principal of the Kenyan School of Law told us. That was Njagi, who later became a judge. He told us that the legal profession looks crowded. But he said at the top, there is a lot of space. It's like a mango tree. You know, at the bottom, you find very many monkeys. But at the top, there is a lot of space. And the reality that we have in this country is there is a group of lawyers that is walking towards the sunset. And you cannot identify the people who will take the mantle from them. There is a huge gap, and if you keep at it, there is a lot of room for you at the top. I think that's all I can say. Thank you for the opportunity.
Thank you very much, Mr. Vida. Next, we'll be having Mr. James Kinoti, who is a part of IGM, and he'll not only be speaking probably on behalf of IGM, but also as a judge in the final bench. Thank you. A round of applause, please.
Thank you, team. I was not prepared to speak. Thank you for the opportunity. When we started this journey as IJM to sponsor this event, it had been quite many years since I've attended moot courts. And I must say that the feedback from my colleagues and my experience here today has left me quite impressed. I'm in that group of lawyers always complaining about the young lawyers not being passionate or not being keen to put in the hard work and having the mantle of get rich quickly. But I've seen a lot of passion, I've seen a lot of effort being put.
I'm really encouraged, and I'll ask you forgive me for thinking ill of the young generation. It's always not good to believe what you read in the press and about the young generation. I think this country has a very bright future. Also, something that struck me was the resilience. I think the final bench were quite sharp on the oralists, and as we were just caucusing before we came here, we were very encouraged by how strong, determined, calm under pressure, and having the ability to come back from that pressure that the judges were putting on you. I must also say thanks to the organizers. This has not been an easy thing to organize, and for it to have come to this point, having judges sat in all the benches, having students participate, and having a full room, even at the end, says a lot about the vision and the effort that has been put into this event. As my colleague Wamaida said, we are very interested in continuing to partner with this AKNCC. We'd really be interested in having more topics about human rights that touch on the area which we work on, which is on children who have been sexually abused, working on children's rights, and also working on extrajudicial killings and police misconduct. So those are areas that we are very interested in, and I hope that we can continue partnering together in the future. Thank you very much.
Who is a representative not only from England but also sat in the final bench. Round of applause.
Okay, thank you very much. Again, I'm representing who? Anyway, Anne spoke on behalf of INGLU, and she perhaps forgot to mention that I am a director at INGLU. And I'm glad that when I came here today, I wish I'd known, or perhaps been made aware that this is a program we started yesterday. I'd have been here actually, because I've come here and I've met so many of my students. I'm a lecturer, a part-time lecturer at the Kenyan School of Law. So the rest of you who are sitting here, you really need to greet me. If you want those percentages to go up. Okay, so I've met quite a number of my students here, and some of them, in fact, are sitting with them in some of the panels. And I'm impressed, really. I'm really impressed by the way they've turned out. And I think that is what we all aspire to as people who have been in this profession. The first thing I always tell my students when I teach criminal litigation, so this is this particular topic is something that really is related to what I teach the students at the Kenyan School of Law. And I always tell them that the generation that have gone before them, have let this country down, and that therefore we expect them to come with open minds, and that we hope that they're going to change the way we've been doing things. And I'm so glad that my colleague has talked about the fact, that when we talk about young minds, you must take advantage of the fact that you have the ability, and you're lucky because you're coming in a dispensation where we have a constitution that gives you the leeway to be able to address these issues. And so do not close your minds. We have a very open mind. Don't limit yourselves by your backgrounds and your cultural leanings and so on. Just come with an open mind. The field is there for you. Change things, and I have a lot of faith in the youth that I deal with now at the school, and I know even those that are at universities. And finally, I'd like to say this. There's this preacher. He's a Nigerian preacher. Actually, an evangelist. I don't know whether they want to call themselves evangelists, and you don't say preacher or pastor. But he was saying that he gave a sermon, a very interesting sermon. He said that as he was passing by the market, there was this Nigerian singer who was singing about whether you want to be a caterpillar or a pillar. You want to be a pillar or a caterpillar. So he based his sermon that week on that. And he actually extended it. And he said, there are three things. You either are a pillar, or a counterpillar, or a caterpillar? Which one do you want to be? A pillar, all of us know this. Without this, of course, this building would not stand. You stand for the truth, and you stand with it. It does not matter what pressure you put under. You stand with the truth. If you're a counterpillar, you're a person who reverses the truth. You change the truth to suit your circumstances. You always want to make sure that because you're working for the AG, you're working in the AG's office, you want to be able to argue that it doesn't matter that this person left their house to go to the police station, they were not seen there because there's no other place that I've gone to. I'm just giving an example. And finally, a caterpillar is a person who destroys the truth and does not, and creates their own rules. And I'll say this, the reason why we are all involved as organizations, and the fact that we're even sitting with you here, there are many others who perhaps are not even interested, and that you're also here is because we want to build you, so that when you come up, I don't believe that you're set in your minds. I know that your minds are still open, and that when you finally come to the school and maybe then get into practice after you've been admitted as advocates of the High Court, that you still have the ability to be able to change your minds and be able to do something different. And I want to believe, therefore, that we can, in our engagement with you, you can be able to change yourself from whichever position you're in and become a pillar. So that at the end of the day, we'll remove the counter and we remove the kata, and all of you will be pillars. Thank you very much.
Just before Mugambi has consulted, I'd like to recognize the presence of Ms. Jacqueline Guerrero. You may stand, please, and say hi to the people. I'd like to say just one or two things on behalf of everywhere you've assisted in the Organ and Report competition.
Allow me to speak from here. Thank you so much, the judges who've come to repress this competition. I'm Jacqueline Were, working with IPOA. I'm here in my own capacity because I love moot courts, and I've previously worked with students, and I really wanted to see this come through, and that's why I am so excited. And I think for most of the sponsors that I've spoken with directly, I've told them I am so happy. So even if the students don't tell you that, just get it from me, because at least finally this came through. We all know when it began, and at some point we thought we wouldn't really make it, but at the end of it all, we reached out to different sponsors who came through within a very short notice, and that's why I insist that after this, we'll do a postmortem of the competition, and as early as next month, let's start discussing March next year, because we all know that moot courts will be taking place next year. Yeah, so I'm very grateful to see you all on the topic. That's something I'm very passionate about, and I cannot even start talking about it now. Thank you.
I just mentioned we have a representative from the Ministry of Interior, and he sat as a judge. I'll just ask him to stand and wave inside the people. Yes. When you see him, see. Yes, so without further much ado, I think I'll welcome His Excellency, the presiding judge. Mr. Mugambi will have to give us a round of applause.
Assalamu alaikum. Mwendeleaje? Siku imekwaje? I will not talk in full Swahili, but at least you guys are understanding me. My work is simple: one, to make few remarks, and two, to announce the results of the final round. Then the president will take over to announce the other categories. We have also nominated, among the judges who took part in the preliminary rounds, the recipient of the EZ Ongoya Award. I hope he or she is here. My name is Muhabi Mugambi. I have participated in this competition as a judge in the last 6 years since it began. Every year, I hope that this year will not be cannot come, but someone prevailed over me to come. So I said, let me appear once more. Because my partner in crime, Henry Paul, is not here, he's somewhere down in the south. Number 2, currently I am a managing partner at Mugambi and Tiga LLP. It's a legal consultancy firm based in Upper Hill. My partner is there. So this year we decided to introduce an award called Ongoya. There is a reason why I mischievously and selfishly chose Ongoya. Other than Ongoya being an advisory patron to AKMCC, Ongoya is also my mentor. And as my brother has alluded there, if you meet him in person, or if you hear his stories, you will wish to be living in his time. I know you know him in person. So that's why we introduced the award, because of the zealousness Ongoya as a person has, the industriousness of himself, his support to students, and his encouragement to students to participate and do moots. I met him in 2011 when I was somewhere in undergraduate doing a moot, and he encouraged me to continue doing the same all through. And there is an experience he usually likes sharing, which I will share with you. He talks about the former government chief pathologist on giving some evidence on the death of Robert Ouko. The chief pathologist said that Robert Ouko, number 1, shot himself in the head, then poured acid on himself. IRAC method. You'll never go wrong. The issue, the rule, and finally, you will never go wrong. You will never go wrong. I was involved in an international competition in my second year, JESA, Philip C. JESA in Washington, D.C. There were 3 judges who sat there. A Dominican Republican judge, a Russian judge, and a judge from Texas. The entire time my lecturer, Madam Constance Gikonyo, kept emphasizing to me, do not get emotional, do not get emotional, just use IRAC. She kept saying like that. So I ended up using it. The entire time the judge from Texas pulled a chair, looked outside the window. She cannot listen to a black man. Imagine I'm called black. You understand that? So the entire time, the judge from the Dominican Republic and the Russian judge gave me audience. I did not stop. I continued doing what? Speaking facts. And they were impressed because I stuck to whatever it is that I was supposed to present in an orderly manner. So I encourage you and I invite you to do the same. Number 3, please improve on your memorials. I took the pain of reading your memorials and I realized a few things. 2 things especially. 1, you have no particular format with which you draft your memorials. Again, I will revisit Ongoya's words. If you want to draft pleadings, take the civil procedure, put it here. Take your paper and pen and start doing what? Drafting. You will never do what? Go wrong. But if you take a precedent, copy-paste the precedent, chances are that you might end up making a what? Mistake. And lastly, number 2 on memorials, please adopt a universal format for citation. The most common one and widely used is what? A scholar. Please adopt, you will never go wrong with that. It is important for you to start improving on your research and drafting. We are together? Number 3 on the general issue I was speaking about, having introduced this award and others by the committee itself, on behalf of myself and Mukami Liga, we will be picking through the organizers a student in next year's competition. We're introducing another award. Any student who's the most promising, either in terms of research or oral skills, we will be taking them as interns for 6 months paid. And we have also committed ourselves to introducing any other 2 awards that the committee shall deem fit and we will sponsor it by ourselves. And again, in the words of my colleague, please contact us what? Enough so that we also prepare and put our house in order. Lastly, the judges, having sat and considered the arguments for both the petitioner, applicant, and the respondent, we arrived at the following conclusion. Number one, the first runners-up oralist in the final, was the first oralist respondent. We do not know their names. The first oralist respondent. Please stand up and give a presidential wave. The fact that we do not know their names should show you how impartial we are. Number two, the best oralist in the final round, second oralist petitioner. You can do a presidential wave. The judges commended her because she was able to respond to most of our questions, and she was ingenious enough to provide alternative legal solutions to the questions we were asking. The rest of the other colleagues were she was humble enough to take in the questions and respond. Number three, the first runners-up are the respondents. Wherever you are, it is an award for you. You can do the Her Majesty's wave. Thank you. The best team are the petitioners. Donald Trump wave. Thank you very much. I am happy to have participated and joined you during this occasion for this event. On behalf of myself and my ancestors and every person that I represent, I want to say thank you, God bless you, and do not drink and drive.
Thank you very much, His Excellency, Mr. Mudana. So we shall go straight to the awarding ceremony. If the team will come here kindly, team 308. I'll request Mr. James Kironji. Just give them a handshake. We do not have their trophy here or their medals. We'll just get a handshake with James Kironji and pose for the photo. You can just go up there so that we can take a card. Sorry. They mentioned the oralists that were best in the finals. However, as the committee regulated, and the best oralist overall. Kindly, Kadima said, please come back. Thank you. And I'll ask Stephen to give this award on behalf of Kenya Law. The best researcher goes to Team 306. Which is going to be presented by people who donated the award. Excellency. Tiga will do it by himself. So the EZ Ongoya Award, based on nominations by the judges, goes to a person by the name Elias Odiamo. The second runners-up for the All Kenyan Moot Court Competition 2018 was Team 202. First runners-up, the respondents team. The respondents from the final, that is team 204. inclusive of all the rounds. The All Kenyan Moot Court Competition Committee decided that we would give an award to the best overall student in everything. And this award will go to Quinta J. We'd like to thank all of us for the participants for being able to participate, and for the winners and the people who participated. I will call you winners because at least you learned something from human rights. So without further much ado, next we shall be having a gift to our partners who have been able to partner with us this year's edition. And this is just a token to say thank you. We cannot be able to say thank you enough for your support. We are immensely grateful. The kind of support, as it was said, we reached out to you at a very, very, very trying moment in our AKMCC lives, and you gave it to us. So we'd like to say thank you, and here is a glass plate just to say thank you. Please display it in your offices so that people can know you supported the All Kenyan competition. So without much ado, I'll begin with the Kenya Human Rights Commission, which will be granted to Mr. Martin Mabenjina, and I request to be able to grant this award. Yes. Round of applause. Next, we shall be having our main partners. Unfortunately, they left. They have been they've been of great support to us. Unfortunately, I didn't have to leave, but Mr. Wolf was both here yesterday. So I'll be able to grant this award. Ms. Nelly Jerobon will be able to take it on their behalf. This award will be given by Titus. Titus, if you don't mind, please. Thank you. A round of applause, please. Yes. Next, we'll be having our partners from the Independent Medical Legal Unit who have assisted us as well. And I'd request Mr. Peter Emmanuel to grant this to both Mrs. Rosemary Crocker, Anne, and Steve, wherever you are. Thank you. A round of applause, please. I've been told to explain why I've asked for the rest of the two people. I was to say this after, but the following two people, Mr. Joseph, Paris, we call him Paris, and Diana. We've worked with them not only in partnering with us, but they were present for almost all of our planning committee. So when we are receiving gifts as a committee, I'd like to also thank them because they really assisted us so much. And this was on the part of the issue of communications. All the posters you see, the hashtags, we want to on Twitter on the first day. And it is all thanks to Paris and a man I cannot forget, Mr. Lloyd Fisher. Kindly stand up as well. These are the people who helped the communication. A round of applause for them. For Diana, she was here all the time. Everything to do with everything. supported us in area 3, and Mr. Charles Kimani will be able to receive this on their behalf. I'll ask Tika if she may present this award to them, please. Thank you. Mr. Charles, please. A round of applause. Thank you. Next, we're going to have our partners who've been with us since the beginning, Kenya Law, and Sylvia is going to receive on their behalf. I don't know if there's anyone else. No, it's just her. And I'll ask who have also supported us in so many ways. And they host this event, they've assisted us in so many ways. This event is Kenyatta University. As much as it's the all Kenyan football competition, it's still Kenyatta University. So I request Dr. Kabata to be able to receive it on behalf of Kenyatta University. And also Mr. Kisore as well, who is also the moot court coordinator. And I request Ms. Rosna, if you don't mind, to be able to practice. A round of applause for the Nina will not be able to make it today, so I'll request Anthony and Joyce, if you don't mind, speak this on behalf of Henry Paul, on behalf of Kaplan Instructor, please. And I'll request Mr. Peter Emmanuel, you can grant this award to them. Thank you. A round of applause, please. And I'll ask Ms. Jack to be able to give this to Titus. A round of applause for them. Thank you very much. Quickly go to individual awards that we are giving to our partners. And we just did something small to be able to say thank you. This is a special part of people who assisted us in being able to coordinate this entire football competition. And if it were not for them, we will not, as a committee, have held this competition. So the following people, I'll just mention your names in a really quick manner. Then I'll be able to ask my committee to be able to come here and assist with my entire committee. Be able to assist me in giving these awards. I won't bother the people who are seated because most of the awards are to them. So we'll begin with Mr. James Kironji to ask the honorary Andy Sifa. Thank you. Next we're going to have Miss Anne Mama to ask the next we're going to have Diana Juruna, and I'll ask Kevin Carey to give that. Next, we shall have Omaina. Thank you very, very much, and I'll ask Marty to grant this award. Next, we're going to have Jackie Were. And I'll ask Nicole to be able to give this award. Next, we're going to have His Excellency Mr. Dami Hari, and I'll do that. Next, we're going to have Steve Biko, and I'll request Mike to be able to do that part. Next, we're going to have Dr. Faith Pakata. I'm going to request Barasa to do that part. Next, we are going to have Mr. Emmanuel Peter. Mr. Emmanuel Peter has left, but we will give it to him. Next, we are going to have the CEO of Kenyan here, but I request Vivian be able to take it on his behalf, and as well as Emily's. Request Fiki and Suhil to grant this law. Next, we're going to have Rosna Kutoka, and I'll request Jambi Janet to be able to grant this award. Next, we shall have Abby Steven, and I'll request Abigail and Asana to be able to grant this award. Next, we're going to have Joyce Dawn. And I'll request the Nelly to give his award. Next, we're going to have Mr. Anthony Mwangi. And I'm going to request His Excellency Kiani to be able to grant his award. Next, we're going to have Charles Kimani. I'm going to request Beatrice to be able to grant his award. Next, we're going to have Caroline Kaunda, the former president. And I'm going to ask Matthew Minde to grant this award. Next, we're going to have Kate Dati. I'm going to request Suheila to grant this award. Dissertation that we struggle to be able to assist and make sure that this competition goes about. So I request them to kindly come please. I'll begin with Mr. Matthew Mwinde, the head of the Talent Center. Mr. Matthew Mwinde, a round of applause for Matthew Mwinde. Next. Sorry, Matthew. Next, we're going to have Mike Bruno Atieno. We call him the DH captain. We're going to request Abigail Namasaka to come grant Mike this award. Next, we're going to have Mr. Kevin Kiari, the co-editor. I'm going to ask Beatrice to kindly give this award to him. Next, we're going to have Miss Nelly Jerobon. I'm going to ask Matthew Mwinde to give this award. Mr. Evans Kazungu Fiki, the head of research paper, going to ask Ms. Nicole Cosme to grant this award. Thank you very much. Without ado, I'd request that Dr. Faye Abata closes this ceremony as she is our host today, and then we can be able to leave at our own pleasure.
Good evening. How are you?
Before we close, now there is a special person who hasn't awarded himself, so we'll do it. That is the president of All Kenyan 2018, Timothy.
Good evening once more. Mine is very brief. I've been asked to close this ceremony on behalf of the dean of the school. But before that, I want to thank each of you for responding to our call to participate in the 2018 AKMCC as students from various law schools, and also preparing and coming to the actual competition. We are very grateful for that, and we do hope that, as you were told yesterday, that it will be an opportunity for you to learn, to grow, and to engage, and also to network and to link, that all that has happened, isn't it? In one way or another. Yeah, and to the sponsors, we are very grateful. The committee members have said more than once that at one point we struggled on whether the topic is decided, and I am very much a human rights person, so I'm intuitively sympathetic to human rights issues, but I was also awake to that, but you came through for us in a very big way, and we are very, very grateful as a school. And to the judges, thank you very much for your time, and also for participating in training the next generation of lawyers. We're very grateful for that. Without anything more, and to the AKMCC committee, I want those students to come up here with me, please. And also, I hope that you will share with them what areas that you want them to improve for next year. Give them feedback so that when you come back next year, the competition will be better than it was this time. And we thank you for giving us feedback for 2017, and we do hope that we have seen that you took it into consideration and try to improve, and we are willing to also be guided for next year of reading. Thank you very much, and I wish you very well in your legal careers and also in everything else that you do.
Just before we leave, there is a cake that has been prepared for all of us, and that request that just before we go, just have a share of that cake. All of thanks, just as the cake people come to feed this journey, make it for you. So as we continue at giving my vote of thanks, I'd like to thank everyone who participated in the open our partners and everyone else. Silence, please. Kindly. Please, silence as we finish off. Saying I'd like to thank everyone that has been able to come in and support us. I'd like to thank representatives from all our sponsors. We cannot be able to say thank you now. I cannot be able to say thank you to the participants. As I always say, the participants, this is your event. You might have all the money that we fundraise, you might have all the good judges, but without you, this competition will not have been a success. So I'd like all participants who are represented here to just give themselves a round of applause. Right. To our judges, I'd like to say thank you very much to our judges. On that note, remember that I forgot someone, Mr. Kevin. He was a presiding judge in the semi-finals. He forgot to give a last journey. Just quickly do that. A round of applause for him. Thank you. Thank you. As I said, to our partners, to our school itself, thank you very much. We've been able to be an anchor and a host to our school, Dr. Kabat and and everyone at Kenyan University School of Law. I'd really like to say thank you for enabling us to host this event in the school and be able to nurture every single day. Now, to the babies, these are the most important people in our courtroom, and I wouldn't want to forget them. I ask them, all of them, to stand wherever they are. Our babies, anyone who served as a baby, and Asha, please stand up. A round of applause to these babies. Thank you very much. To my committee, thank you very, very, very much. I cannot have enough words to say thank you for the support, for the love, for the laughter we've had. We've had probably the best committee I've ever had since I joined the AKMCC, and I'd like to say thank you very much to you people. We would not have had this opportunity if it was not for you. And in that note, my term as a president has come to an end. Today is my last day as president of the World Competition. I have loved being the president, and It is my honor and duty to introduce to you the next president. Your name. Thank you, Baraza. That is the man who will not control your words just for my please take you the assistant. Thank you very much, and as we cut the cake, I have to say thank you very much. It has been a wonderful time, and from me, the president, Sarab, thank you.
My name is Daniel Murkomen, President School of Law at Kabarak University. I have been privileged to attend a 6th All Kenyan Moot Court competition at Kenyatta University. It has been a great experience indeed. Most I'd like to thank the President of the Moot Court at Kenyatta University School of Law, Timothy, my friend, for once choosing a contemporary issue for young students of the law like us.
It was a very informative theme that was so important to the students, considering the fact that we were just from election.
I can tell you that I'm impressed. Aside from all other moot competitions I've seen, I like how the judges have been probing the people and how people have also learned how to respond to these questions.
So I'm Quinto Otieno, one of the participants in the 6th edition of the All Kenya Moot Court competition. And my experience in this regard has been such a wonderful and learning experience. it has been an experience of trying to understand the aspects of human rights better.
And all the participants have tried to actually argue out both sides, and the striking a balance between the four is actually stipulated under Article 20.
In summary, it has been a good experience. Thank you.
It was a nice day for both Kenyatta University and Kabarak University. I believe that we should be continuing with such competitions. Kabarak University will always purpose to attend that project. Thank you.
We believe it was a very good moot competition, and everything is fair and in accordance with the rules and regulation of this particular moot. Thank you so much.
I can't wait to see all these people who are converged here becoming great lawyers in the long run. Yes. Bye-bye.